as a Japanese person, I'm not going to talk about American side, but as a Japanese person, what we want out of this election, I guess. So that'll give you guys kind of insight on, your audience, I guess, because a lot of Japanese people watch our podcast. And so I think there's two things that we care about. One is the economy, obviously. And the second one's like the partnership, the alliance, the US-Japan alliance. And I think economy-wise, because Japan's so business-oriented, Trump is a businessman. So a lot of people might like him for that. And I think the economy is doing okay. So a lot of people if Biden wins and the stock goes down or whatever, they're not going to like that. So I think it's more towards Trump in terms of economy, just because people don't care about domestic issues in the States, it's all about the economy, and how to beat China or whatever, and how the US-Japan trade works. And then for the US alliance, I think Biden is more important for that because, the less commitment in the Asia Pacific region is bad for us. South Korea is kind of turning on us a little, they're more towards China now in terms of most policies. So if the US increases just restore its relationship with Japan, and the European nations too, just its commitment and justice, like the champion of democracy, as phony as that sounds, I think that's important for Japan. So I think Biden winning, I think a lot of people militarily wants Biden to win now that the Asia Pacific region is just so hostile, So I think those are the two, issues that Japanese people care about. But, my American side tells me that, oh my God, like the domestic issues, just, I only get the news. It's just so shitty over there. I think shitty is just not enough to describe it. And it's just simple to describe it, but okay. But yeah, that's my Japanese part. I care about the domestic side, honestly.
Okay, so I think on the economic side, right, there has always been this image that like Donald Trump is like a businessman, therefore he's better for the economy, and indeed the economy did do really well like over the first 3 years of his presidency. Obviously that's kind of like a coattails thing from Obama, right? But the other thing is that even if you create business-friendly policies, Trump is still a very bad president for the economy, and the reason is stability, right? More than like government policies that affect like regulations or taxes or like tariffs and stuff like that. Those are all important economic policies, but if you cannot provide a stable like administration, like just something that people believe like that, like the conditions that we start out with today will continue for the next couple of years. Stability in terms of political stability, right? In terms of like ensuring that fair elections happen, stuff like that. That is just completely destructive for economies, right? Like there's nothing like basically the one common thread between like second world countries that aren't able to develop like successfully industrialize and develop into like into first world economies is always that they have unstable governments, right? And that's like always the common thing where basically if you don't have a stable government, you can't build a good economy, and then it'll be bad. So even if you have business friendly policies, by just being an agent of chaos, Trump is pretty much the worst president for the economy.
So who do you think is going to win? And I'm sure, you don't want to make predictions, of course, not on record, but we're going to have to do it because we already did it 4 years ago.
Majorly historic event of what will likely be our first woman president.
I'm just going to say Biden's going to win because just looking at the polls, I'm not currently in the United States, so I don't know what it's actually like there. But judging from the news, I think Biden's going to win. But I think one interesting thing is that Trump recovering from the virus actually gave him this miracle, kind of this like, oh, he recovered. So I think a lot of voters in his like supporters, Trump supporters, I think one thing that would have brought them to the Democratic side would have been Trump's coronavirus, policies. And if it failed, they would come to the Democratic side. But with him recovering, I feel like that could be seen as a miracle by some Trump supporters, and they won't come to the Democratic side. But I don't know. I think Biden's gonna win. We had enough Trump. You guys had enough Trump. I think people know that. I believe in America. Do the right thing, America. Vote for Biden. Not Kanye either. I love Kanye.
Yeah, I
love Kanye.
Yeah,
You love Kanye. Everyone loves Kanye.
Kanye loves Kanye.
No,
Kanye doesn't.
no one. That's not entirely true, though. I don't think everyone loves Kanye. I don't really like Kanye. Okay, but seriously, though, I do think Joe Biden probably will win. I think likely big factor I'm thinking about is just how many voting mail-in ballots have come in,
Right,
and
that's
just
the
the
issue.
kind of weighing that against just voter turnout in the past. I think that it is. We've gotten. I think the percentages are just like really high, just like at parts 200% more. Votes have received. We've already gotten them than we would have gotten at this time last during a normal election. I think those factors alone, and given Trump's just horrible unpopularity, and even like his supporters are questioning his definitely ability to handle the coronavirus. He'll always have his base, but he's been proven wrong. Everything he said he was going to do, he has failed to do, which is great because all those things were horrible, but he still managed to do a lot of other horrible things that have just put it very clearly on the table that he just failed. He's failed at everything. His greatest capacity is to lie, though. And as long as he can maintain a base and create enough confusion, I definitely see a just as realistic scenario as 4 years ago for his path to victory. That being said, I think that Joe Biden will probably win.
Okay. What about you, Ethan?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's like 80% chance Joe Biden wins. There's like 50% chance that like Trump will try to pull some shady shit. Regardless whether he like if Joe Biden wins, like there's a lot of opportunity for Trump to say, hey, like these mail-in ballots are illegitimate, or hey,
Right.
like Hunter Biden, I don't know what he's gonna say, but like this man is not rational, right? He also does not like losing. He does not like he's just like psychologically like incapable of like admitting defeat. So the question is basically how seriously do it's a fairly, I say there's a fair chance that he'll do something completely insane and like throw our country into like weeks of chaos. Chances that he's taken seriously, hopefully pretty low, but who knows, especially if Amy Coney Barrett gets
right, the SCOTUS thing. What if the mail-in ballots are considered illegal by the SCOTUS? What's up with that?
Yeah, I mean, well, if it gets to SCOTUS and she's confirmed, like we're really screwed. Like John Roberts, he's the conservative Chief Justice, but he's being a pretty he's a pretty independent-minded guy and has has been a swing vote for the liberal bloc on the court before.
Right, he's moderate.
But with Amy Coney Barrett on there, it's going to be like impossible for anything to anything not favoring Trump to fail, basically. So that's a really scary situation. And so the only big takeaway from the one debate we did have of Trump is that he's basically a baby. And like obviously like Biden's like never really been a great debater, but he came across as like a sane
he's not
human
very
being
sharp
in relation to Trump, and
perfectly competent.
And then there's the whole thing where Trump was like probably had the coronavirus during the debate. Just the sheer insanity of that.
That is
like imagine if he gave it to Biden. That would have just been like a whole like, I mean, it was already like that like week and a half was insane, but like if he had given it to Biden, it would have been just like all hell breaking loose.
Well, to speak to the fact, may I?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Yeah.
To speak to the fact that debates don't matter anymore, at least, it's because the politicians aren't hot anymore. It mattered when JFK was running against Nixon, gave him at the edge, because JFK was this young, youthful politician, but they're all so elderly now. Trump, Biden, it's just an interesting.
Well, there's that factoid where it was like Nixon was considered to be the winner by people who listened to the radio broadcast, but JFK was considered to be the winner by anyone who watched television broadcast.
Right.
Which obviously shows a lot about how charisma and kind of like stage presence and whatnot has an effect on voter perception.
But what about social media nowadays? Because back then it was radio, then it was
Yeah.
TV, and now it's social media. Look at all the ads, on all the little meme ads on Twitter, and then
Right.
just like Trump just tweeting every hour, just all in all caps, and I'm sure a lot of people follow that, the blue collar workers. They like that. They like the simple words. I think
yeah, I mean, if I had to guess, I would say that Trump's tweeting is probably counterproductive.
Okay.
It's part of his brand, but like Joe Biden's basically had the strategy of just like don't really tweet anything like controversial at all, and so far, at least polling wise, it seems to be working out for him.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of ways, you want to stay out of the spotlight if you're already in the lead, right?
Right, that is true.
Trump keeps on getting himself into trouble, and
Mm-hmm.
so Biden's strategy is just to let him keep on doing that.
Right.
Is that Trump's strategy though, ever to stay out of the spotlight?
Yeah, I suppose
I feel like
they
Trump's
have
strategy
like complementary
differs in a very
right? Yeah,
particular way because his strategy, I think, is more of the epileptic nature, where I think his Twitter serves as the oil in the machine of his perpetual spectacle. And I think that's what Trump's whole brand is he's constantly a moving target and constantly producing so many scandals that you can never catch up. It's just constant feed. And to be tweeting literally every hour, it's
crazy how that appeals.
So it's constant. It's a completely
crazy how that
entering
appeals to
every
some
moment of our
Americans.
lives. It's filling in
Well,
every temporal gap.
So it might not be so much that, well, first of all, okay, so yeah, it's kind of insane how much earned media Trump is able to get, right? Like he's basically like for every like, minute of like airtime that Hillary Clinton tried to get, that had to pay for basically to get on like national networks, Trump could get it for free because he just say outrageous things.
That's so true.
And that's kind of the strategy is that he's not necessarily tweeting things. It certainly appeals to some people, right? But the nature of these tweets is almost more to control the media like cycle and control the narrative, and to constantly distract like from the past sequence of like insane things to move on to the next, right? And so using social media as a tool to kind of shift where the discussion's going and kind of shift what the media is talking about is probably the value that Trump sees in it, rather than it being a direct channel to voters, which it is, but that's probably the secondary effect of it.
This is such an American thing with the showbiz and celebrities and,
Mm-hmm.
just media saturated America, because in Japan, if the administration does any scandals, if even one minister says something outrageous, just saying it, right, then it just hurts the approval rate. And people avoid that. And there's no scandals in Japanese politics. Maybe there's one every like half a year, And so it's crazy how your president, well, I guess my president too, I mean, my American side, is just full of scandals, and that's what gives him the edge because he's so covered in media. That's insane to me. There are so many things in American politics that's just unique to America. And I mean, it's the nature of the country, because it's very new, and it was based on democracy and just freedom from the continent, from Europe. But I don't know, it's just insane to me.
There's the saying that like every business in America is show business. I don't know who said that, but I don't know. Ethan, have you heard that before?
No.
Sounds like
no. Yeah. So I'm gonna repeat it now, and I would say that I think Trump will be remembered as the new P.T. Barnum of politics, because I think P.T. Barnum was the first real manipulator and mastermind of mass media. And I think the perpetual predecessors included, of course, Walt Disney,
Adolf Hitler.
And it's really touched a lot of...
he was a propagandist. He used a lot of propaganda.
Yes. I mean, I think, yes.
German film, German radio.
His orator was essential. I mean, you can see in a lot of political, obviously, risings that orator is essential to them. But I think that his particular understanding that media will cover is not, it's completely focused on the most extravagant thing. And as long as you have people's attention, I think that ultimately matters more than anything else, because I think that's a kind of stability.
Thank you guys so much for watching.
If you like this video, like and subscribe.
Should there be a red lens TikTok? Leave your thoughts in the comments below.